Hey guys, it's Prince Rich with Rich Technology Group. Today's video is called Why You Need to Always Check for Available Internet and Phone Services at your new office location before you move. So recently, I would say over the last 2 to 3 months, I think ever since we've been selling phone and internet service, we've always gotten calls from people that are relocating, that are either moving into a new office in a new state or zip code or new locale. I get calls often from people that, are a multi-locale thing, and they're either opening up an additional location or an additional franchise location or something like that. And one of the biggest, most common pitfalls that we see that, yes, we can help with phone and internet service, but there's only so much we can do, is persons that have already committed to their move before they even thought about lifting a finger to check what available phone and internet service is even going to be at that location, and is there even any for my business to function. Now, let's be real. It's 2020, it's the 21st century, and I think we can all agree that if you're a business and you don't have not only internet service, but quality internet service that not only has enough bandwidth for your business, but is also stable, you're not in business. Not only are you not in business, you aren't a stable business. And for most of us, including my business, we literally can't survive without internet and reliable internet. You guys would be surprised how many phone calls I've gotten from people that will literally call me and say something to the effect of, we've already moved, or we've signed a lease, or we've signed a contract for a building, and now we need you to help us find phone and internet service. This is an absolute no-no, and not only is this a fatal move, it can cost you, and I'm going to tell you some stories, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars if you aren't careful with this. So, before I get into these stories, if you're somebody who's watching this video right now and you're planning an office relocation or planning an additional location for your business, I want you to stop what you're doing before you sign that lease, you sign that purchase contract, or sign anything that commits you to that space or to that building. And I want you to drop me an email and say, hey, Prince, I'm looking at this address. We're looking at potentially relocating to this address. Can you tell me what services are there? So anyways, without further ado, here's some scenarios that we've seen, and I could give you countless more, but there just isn't enough time in a day. So there's one thing that a lot of people don't know about with internet, and there's something called construction costs. Construction costs and also construction delays. Delays, some people can deal with. We'll talk about delays first, and then we're going to get into cost. So, first of all, what you have to understand is if you're thinking about moving into an office, if it's something like a strip mall or a big development, typically you don't have a lot of issues because it means that somebody has already been there and probably had internet before you, which means service is there, the area is hot, and you should, in theory, be able to get service installed within 48 hours to 2 weeks at most. However, there are occasions, and they're not rare, where you are in a new location, meaning you may be the first person to get service there, or you're building a new location, which means you are definitely the first person to get service there. What this means is a couple of things. Number one, the carrier, i.e. Comcast, Verizon, Spectrum Business, Cox Communications, Windstream, the list goes, the list goes on and on and on. They have cost and delays and legalities involved with having to get service to that building. It's not as easy as you just calling them up and sign a contract and they just show up with a van and with the guy with a Spectrum Business or Comcast or Verizon shirt or AT&T shirt the next day and install. They have cost associated with being able to get that service to your area, i.e. construction equipment, i.e. technician labor, i.e. materials. They also, if they're, say, having to run cable next to utilities, such as water and electricity, or use a trencher to get under a nearby street or intersection, they have to, by law, deal with the city or state or whatever municipality you may be in to get permits. Not only does this cost money, there is time involved with this. So I have had a lot of people that they find out a terrible scenario where they purchased a building or signed a lease, And then not only are they looking at potentially weeks and in some cases months and months to get service to their location, they're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars to have to actually get the service delivered. And then it turns into a thing where should they really have been to that? Should they really have signed a lease or purchased that building, in the first place? Should they have looked at another option where they could have more easily gotten service at less cost with less delays? So anyways, I'm going to give you guys some scenarios of some things that we've seen. Not too long ago from the time of the recording of this video, we worked with a private school and daycare, and I'm not going to mention any names out of respect for these persons, respect and security. We worked with a private school that contacted us that already had an existing location. The existing location had Comcast Business Internet in it without any problems, and they had a phone system. They contacted me wanting to see if I could get Comcast Business at this location as well, at the new location. The guy had already started building the building. It was their building, so there was no turning back in that regard. They'd already invested what sounded like probably hundreds of thousands of dollars into this new facility, and they wanted to get the same type of Comcast internet like what they had at their current location, which was only costing them about $175 a month for Comcast phone and internet. Not a bad deal for a location that needs almost 50 phones. It's got a pretty large staff and footprint and a pretty large need for phone and internet service throughout the complex. I contacted Comcast on their behalf only to find out that Comcast wanted a $9,000 deposit, non-refundable deposit. I guess you wouldn't even call that a deposit. They called it a construction investment from the customer for Comcast to do what needed to be able to be done to get service to this new location, i.e. trenchers, i.e. construction, on the ground, i.e. permits from the city and the state and things like that to be able to legally do it. The client wasn't really happy about that. When you think that he wanted to just get a $175 a month package from Comcast, and Comcast is saying, you got to pay $9,000 for us to be able to deliver this service, that's a pretty big, we'll call it unplanned expense when, you're dealing with building a new school and things like that. The client was relatively furious, and this was definitely something that kind of caught them from the broadside. And he basically said, well, can you find out for me, Prince, what other options are available? The only other option that was available at that location, and I checked everything, Verizon, Spectrum, you name it, was AT&T Fiber. Okay, what's the catch? AT&T Fiber, at the minimum, these guys were wanting approximately $550 to $600 a month for fiber. So we had to sit and look at it and say, okay, which makes more sense? Should you just pay the $9,000 non-refundable upfront to Comcast and get the $175 a month bill that you want and slowly regain that savings over time? Or should you pay AT&T $550 to $600 for fiber? The client ended up wanting to go with the AT&T because he didn't want to chunk out the $9,000 investment. Where me personally, I would have put down the $9,000 investment to Comcast because to me, the $175 a month phone and internet bill over what AT&T wanted approximately $600 a month for, over time you would make back in savings that $9,000 upfront construction cost. But regardless, my point is not to sit here and debate which direction the customer went was good or bad. My point is this could have all been avoided if the client had have checked the phone and internet first before committing to whatever the new building and complex was that they had. Now, to play devil's advocate, we're going to use me as an example. At the time of this video, I'm actually building a home. When I was shopping for lots, especially as the phone and internet go-to guy, it was funny because I had lots of people that were like, oh, Mr. Rich, this is a great deal in this lot. And I had to look one guy in the face and tell him, look, I don't care if your lot that you're trying to sell me is free. If this lot, until I get back to my office and I check with my carriers and find out what options are available at this particular lot address and location, I told him, I said, I don't care if you give me this lot to build my house on for free. If it doesn't have the phone and internet that I require, no deal. So I just want you guys to realize, for those of you who are watching this that are home office for your business, even for your home, I highly recommend you reach out to somebody like me and find out what services are or aren't available at your lot before you commit to anything. Last one that I want to go over as an example, and this one actually had a happy ending, but had not had a happy ending, it would have been a scenario, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. We had an insurance company out in Texas that we worked with approximately 2 years ago. This particular company, when they reached out to us, they were in a building with multiple tenants, and everybody was using Frontier Internet, which was only DSL. They were specifically told by Suddenlink, which is a broadband provider, similar to like a Comcast business or a Spectrum business, just in a different region. They typically reside on the West Coast from what we see. We see that they work a lot in Texas as well. They were told by Suddenlink that in order to deliver broadband internet to their building, they were going to have to pay a $16,000 non-refundable, upfront construction cost to Suddenlink. Luckily, being the best go-to guy for phone and internet deals in the United States that I am, I had some contacts in high places with Suddenlink. So I reached out to Suddenlink, and basically the way that I was able to broker the deal with them was Suddenlink, a little birdie at Suddenlink told me, hey, Prince, there's no way we're going to be able to work with them on the $16,000 deposit, but if there's more people in that area or at that office that you think would be able to commit to internet, maybe we could find a way to make it worth Suddenlink's while. What we ended up doing was I went back to the landlord or the owner of the building, who also was a landlord and had other tenants that worked in the building, had several other people. And we ended up finding out that everybody that was in there was unhappy with their current internet service and wanted something faster and more robust. So what we did was we put together a proposal to Suddenlink that basically said something to the effect of, hey, if you're willing to cut these guys a break on this asking price of $16,000, we've got about 4 other people in this office that will also sign separate contracts for Suddenlink broadband and phone service with your company, as well as the owner who lives down the street in a large home office wants Suddenlink in her home. What would you be willing to do for us? By doing that, I was able to get Suddenlink to completely waive the $16,000, and they installed the service. There's a catch though. While we did get service and everything went well, it took 6 months, exactly 6 months, for Suddenlink to not only get this all approved through the powers that be at Suddenlink and get this fee waived, but also for them to work with the county and the state out there in Texas to get the proper permits that they needed to run this wire up under a public street and all that kind of stuff. So for those of you who are watching this video, understand that even if you decide to not go with my advice in this video about checking for available phone and internet service before you commit to a lease or purchase agreement at your new location, you may still be looking at some major delays. So again, in closing, this is the reason why it's really important that everybody check for available phone and internet services at their location before they relocate or commit to anything on paper. I'm here to help you with any of that. I represent every single phone and internet service provider in the United States, as well as the voice over IP service providers. So again, Prince Rich with Rich Technology Group, your go-to guy for the best deals on business phone and internet in the United States. I'll talk to you guys again in the next video.